We want quick fixes. Yeah. We don't want to feel any pain. But, the thing is, pain is part of what we have to go through, not just because it's life, but that's growth. What is the purpose of the in-between? We can't control it anyway. We can't rush it. As much as you dream about the lottery ticket and rushing it, you can't rush your husband's recovery or the situation that's happening with your grandson and your daughter. You can't. So what's the purpose of it? What can we do instead in the in-between?
Okay, Mary. You scare me when you say stuff like that.
Well, this episode is called Lingering in the Tension, which, why did I even call it that? Part of it is because I've been deep thinking, and me and deep thinking is dangerous. But part of it is because of the season we're in right now. And it was triggered by reading this book by Kat Armas called Sacred Belonging. And she was talking about the tension just before spring when winter isn't entirely done.
Right.
And actually driving on the way here, there was some snow coming down.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, by the time this podcast tapes, hopefully we'll be in full out spring. But right now, as we're taping this, we're kind of in this place of, it's supposed to be spring, but winter's not quite done. The flowers haven't started blooming. A couple of nights ago, there was actually this really vicious storm that was happening outside our back door.
And if you have a dog, you are very aware of spring.
Oh,
with
what?
Muddy paws.
Yes.
And things that have been unearthed during the winter that are stinky and smelly and attractive to roll in.
Oh, yes.
It is a very exciting time for a dog.
It is very true. Well, the other thing is, because we used to have a dog, and wintertime. Yeah. They go in the backyard, they do their business.
Yes.
All the snow melts, and guess what's left?
Landmines.
That was always Peter's job, not mine. Lucky him. So she says, those last few weeks before spring, when winter is trying desperately to hold on, her bony fingers, cold and frail.
Oh.
I know, right? Losing their grip in the warmth of the sun. The trees towering above your head might still be bare, and when you look down, buds of purple are sprinkled across the ground, bursting forth from Earth's womb. So I think, first of all, it was extremely poetic, but it was just this sense of the in-between, the tension of the in-between. When something hasn't ended quite yet, something that's not so pleasant or not so great hasn't quite ended yet, and the new that's about to come hasn't yet happened.
And if I might interject there, I think this particular year has been a big tease because we've had days in March, which were 15, 16 degrees, and we're out in t-shirts.
Right.
And then 3 days later, we're having sleet and hail and snow.
Exactly.
And you get your hope up, and then it's dashed again.
That's right.
And it feels like the hope is kind of squelched.
Right. So that's why I thought it was a really good analogy for just what it's like for all of us at some stage in our life where we're in the in-between. And there's a tension of it. So there's a sense of hope. We're trying to hope for change, but yet things are not changing. And even with personal growth, we just finished this whole series on Henry Cloud's book on Never Go Back. And we got the insight now. We got it. Shouldn't we just be miraculously better and different and changed? And no, of course, we're in the in-between. And I think that it's in the in-between, there is something really powerful that happens if we choose to let it be powerful.
Yeah.
It's a time of reflection. It's a time of maybe grieving. It's a time of real deep honesty. When we're in the in-between, when we're in the waiting. There is something about that that's really important. So I know that, sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, when I think of spring, in this yucky time of the in-between, what we don't see is the inner work that's happening in the trees.
True.
And the daffodils and the lilac bushes and all that that's going to create beauty and shade and protection for us later. But it's that waking up of dormancy into this preparation.
Right.
And it's all inner work that we don't see.
Yes.
And I wonder how much of that can be applied to our lives when we are in these seasons. What is the inner work being done in us?
That is so good. That is such a good reminder. Yeah. And, you know, the analogy of the oak tree, it takes years, decades for it to grow to its fullness.
Yeah.
So why are we in such a rush? But I think this particular episode really spoke to me because it's been a season for us. And I think there's like, you know, both of us have had experience of not things going the way we wanted it to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wanted to kind of talk about it and share from a honest place so that our listeners and our viewers could track with us and acknowledge that there are parts of their lives that they're in the in-between and there's pain associated with that. So, I mean, for me, you know, I talk happily about the fact that I have a book coming out.
Right.
But that was 10 years in the running.
Yeah.
Because the book that we started our whole series on, The Fully Lived Life, that was 2014 that it came out. And now we're in 2024.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of thinking it was never going to happen. There was a lot of discouragement. There was a lot of efforts that didn't seem to go anywhere. And I did put things aside for a while, thinking it was just never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was through a series of really almost seemed accidental, but now I see that it was this process of my life that led up to this point where I've got a book coming out. And looking back, I needed to live the last 10 years of my life to write this book, which is called Becoming. And it's all about the whole thing of undoing the stuff, the unbecoming, so that we could become or re-become our true selves. And I needed those 10 years. So I can look back and reflect on it. But while I was going through that time, it was really, really painful. I had a lot of doubt, lots and lots of doubt, and just wonderings.
Well, and I remember, you know, watching you through some of those periods, the grieving process, but also there was almost like a resolution that you made that the book just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
That you had given up on that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 10 years is a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And then kind of out of the blue, some things started to change.
And it wasn't really out of the blue when I look at it, because there was a lot of things that were changing in me.
Yes.
And I needed those years to let go of the way I thought it should be. I had to let go of what I thought others expected of me.
Right.
Like, am I this one book wonder? And because of just fighting that sense of insecurity that I'm not a one book wonder, I put so much pressure on myself to try to write something that wasn't ready to come out.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of reflection through that, but also releasing. So although I did go through the period of discouragement, resentment, lots of like bitterness, even anger, at the end of it, there was a sense of peace, actually, because I had resolved it through to recognizing that I didn't need it to be a part of my identity.
Right.
I didn't need it to prove anything to myself or to the world. It would be what would naturally emerge from me when and if it was to come out. And that's what happened.
Yeah. And, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of that wrestle and inner work that would only be seen by a very few people.
That's true. Yeah.
The world didn't know that you were planning on writing another book.
Right.
And that you were going through this whole process. So this idea of having to come to terms with yourself.
Right.
And with just a few people around you that actually knew that this was a hope and a dream. Right. But watching that inner work that was going on in you, you had to walk through that on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, with the support of others, but definitely it was the inner work that only you could do.
Yeah. And like, I'd have to go back and journals just even to kind of get into the depths of it.
Yeah.
But there were some moments that, and it was, in retrospect, a really, really, really important part of my journey that I would not change. But easier to say it now
Yes,
at the other end of it
Yes.
than when you're in it. And so, like, for you, I know the last year or couple years has been really, really tough. I mean, you mentioned Bruce's knee surgery, but there's been a whole bunch of other things that's kept you in this in-between for a while.
Yeah, like the knee surgery seems like the cherry on the top of the cake.
Compared to all the other stuff that's maybe...
Sure. Well, I mean, you know that we've been, our desire and our ache as a couple have been to downsize our house and move to a house that's more conducive to aging and living.
Right.
Because Bruce's mobility over the last couple of years has been an issue with both his knees. One was replaced years ago, but in the meantime, life's happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Our daughter lives with us, our grandson lives with us, and that was for good reasons. She needed to finish school. She needed to get, some things established. And of course, the economy changed in the midst of all that. Right. Pandemic happened in the midst of all that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So there were factors of much beyond our control. And that seemed to just delay. And then 2 years ago, my husband was involved in an accident, not caused by him. And
it was very serious.
It was very serious.
So
in fact,
scary. Yeah.
I mean, you and other friends showed up at the hospital that day. We didn't know what it was going to look like. And, he's been in physiotherapy for almost 2 years and waiting for this knee replacement too.
Right.
Because things are exacerbated that. So it feels like now we're just beyond that a bit. But the living arrangements still haven't changed. So it's this delay. And the worst thing about it is that my husband keeps showing me like real estate listings.
And I have to admit, I've shown a few too.
Mary got the memo.
Yeah, okay? I did.
Because Mary was sending me these, listings. And at one point I just said to her, you just need to stop sending me listings until I ask. Because it was like the carrot.
Yeah.
That was that much out of reach. Like, because my feeling is that if I can't act on it, why put it in front of me?
Right.
And that's the 8 talking, because 8s like to move towards action, right?
Right.
So, I just had to say, and you listened. You got the memo and you listened. Whereas my husband sends me listings every day.
I know.
Drives me insane.
Well, for him, the dream keeps him going.
True.
Whereas for you, because you want to take action and you can't.
That's right.
And what's interesting, your in-between has a lot of things that have happened that haven't been your choices.
No.
That have happened to you or in your life. And you've had to make choices, very wise, very loving, very sacrificial, amazing choices that have cost you.
Yes.
And how do you wrestle through that where, life presents you with circumstances that are outside of your control and you have to make choices to stay in the in-between? Yeah. And how do you get through that?
Well, the way I get through it is reading stories of resilience from others. It's true. I mean, when I lean into stories of resilience, I mentioned this a little while ago to you in one of our podcasts.
Yeah.
Of this woman raising 3 boys, single mom in a really rough neighborhood. And she decided to make her life lovely in this little apartment.
Yeah.
And there she is in this, very colorful apartment, sitting at the dining room table with her 3 boys, and everyone's doing their homework because they're all going back to school and she's working on her degree.
Right.
And that's a story of resilience to me. So reading stories like that keep me going because there are people battling really horrible things right now.
Difficult things for
all
sure.
over the world.
Yeah.
And yet the stories of resilience that comes out of that give me hope.
Give us hope for sure.
And encouragement.
Yeah. And I think that's important because we need that. But it's also a reminder of the patience that we need when we're in the in-between, because we're like a quick fix society. We hate pain. Like if we can just rush through the in-between or numb ourselves to the pain, then hopefully it'll just go away.
I have a whole fantasy world built up in my head.
Yes, I know.
Someone gives me a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
It's like $21 million.
Oh, yes.
And right away, my problems are all solved.
All solved. Yeah. We want quick fixes. Yeah. We don't want to feel any pain. But, the thing is, pain is part of what we have to go through, not just because it's life, but that's growth.
Well, our previous episode.
That's right.
Leans right into that.
So we want to rush through the in-between, the tension of the unknown, when spring hasn't sprung yet. And when our hopes and dreams haven't been realized, whether we're waiting for the job offer or the dream home or the transition to the next stage in our life, whatever it might be. So she says, back to the book that I was reading, Kat says, it's the season of the in-between, surrounded by many opposing true things, when nature sends us quiet reminders to hold the tension longer. She's asking us to hold the tension longer.
I know, but I don't like that.
But what is the purpose of the in-between? We can't control it anyway. We can't rush it. I mean, as much as you dream about the lottery ticket and rushing it, you can't rush your husband's recovery or the situation that's happening with your grandson and your daughter. You can't. So what's the purpose of it? What can we do instead in the in-between? Like I was thinking, what if we look at it as a time of intentional reflection, learning, growth, but what if it's a time of just resting and preparing? Like it's a time of almost going dormant and not putting so much effort in this propulsion forward, because you can't.
No, you can't.
But you can be in the sense of spaciousness, of rest and reflection, maybe building stronger relationships with yourself, with others, in your faith, if you're a person of faith, to notice the small gifts that are there. Not in a way that diminishes the reality that we are in a place of in-between, that there's tension. They're not ignoring the pain, but just kind of gives us a sense of hope that there's this movement forward that happens, even if we don't know when we're going to get to the other side. So this isn't about, being so positive that we're ignoring the fact that it's painful. In fact, I hate toxic positivity. She goes on to say, Kat, silver linings only poison me with anger. Well, we're always looking for the silver lining. And she says, I will not sacrifice my humanity at the altar of positivity.
Oof.
Right? And how many times do we say at least to try to minimize our struggles?
Yes.
So I'm waiting on a job offer. At least I have a home.
Right.
My treatments are still ongoing and they're super brutal, but at least it's helping me eventually get better. So we quickly skip over the pain of the in-between to try to minimize it. And that's not at all. And so she goes on saying, this really, really spoke to me. Sometimes the best response to our howls of anguish is the honest one. We need friends who wince along with our pain, who tolerate our gloom, who allow us to be weak for a while we're finding our feet again. We need people to acknowledge that we can't always hang on, that sometimes everything breaks. And so she says, my silver lining was a very act of giving myself the opportunity to remain tender for as long as I need to. This thing about being tender, it's not being toxic positivity where we're, just ignoring the fact that we're in pain. It's not the same as optimism, because optimism does acknowledge our pain, but there's a sense of hope.
Right.
But it's just being tender to where we are right now, which is in the in-between. So can we do that? Can we be tender towards ourselves? And, as long as we need.
And I do like what, she said a few minutes ago, is it's that honesty that you can be in the gloom.
Right.
And in the hard place.
Right.
And what I find sometimes is that others want to rush us out of it.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
So you have to have people that you can be really honest with and say, please don't send me any more listings because my heart can't take it right now. right?
And that's being tender towards you. Okay, I'm going to get emotional because I did a little something. And for those of you who are watching a video, you're going to be able to see it. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, you might want to tune into the YouTube video because I really wanted to do something to honor the in-between. And so I did a little something because when I feel pain, I shop. No, actually what happened was I was at a gallery and I was seeing a piece of art that moved me so much that I couldn't leave it. I was there for a good hour just staring at it. And I said, darn it, I'm buying it. And I bought one for me. I bought one for you. So here you go.
I have no idea what this is.
Yes. Yes.
I told her, she scared me with the notes.
Yes. When I said, I'm going to do a little something for you. And there's a little description of what this art represents. So Jillian, for those of you who are listening, and she's opening it now, it's wrapped up in 1,000 bubbles, so it might take her a little while.
Hang in there.
Yeah, hang in there. And it's done by an artist. Her name is Heather Haitala. And she's obviously an artist who's done a lot of life, is honest about the pain of life, but also has hope, and she creates art that represents that.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is just gorgeous.
So it's a boat or a kayak. And I know Jillian loves to kayak, so that's part of what resonated with me. But each of these are wood-fired meditation vessels. They're hand-built and hand-carved. And she uses a variety of clay. And they celebrate the individual as a vessel.
Oh, that's
and
incredible.
The spirit of one's soul. So the thing about this, if you can look closely at it, and we'll put a picture on our Instagram so you can see it. The glass is broken glass.
Yeah.
And the glass has experienced the transformative intensity of fire to become whole and beautiful again.
Oh my goodness.
So she uses heat. So she's using everyday glass.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a reminder of everyday life, everyday pain. It comes from food containers. It comes from wine bottles. And it's smashed and broken into shards. Sometimes like how our life feels, like it's smashed and broken into shards. And then she remelts it. And then the color changes to this beautiful color as the glass interacts with the minerals. And the firing that she uses. So for me, and for her, this represents, to me, why I wanted to give it to you as a gift. It represents the journey that you've been on. I wanted to do honor to the journey you've been on and to the beauty that you represent.
I'm going to have you hold like a tissue.
Okay. The beauty of your life, the broken glass of what you've gone through and continue to go through, and that it is part of what makes you beautiful and that there's hope in all of that. So that's why I decided to do that. And I didn't tell Jillian that I was doing this because I wanted to invite you into our friendship, our journey. This is like, I wanted to also encourage you through the recognition that I understand that all of you have broken bits of glass in your life. I can't even talk. You all have broken bits of glass in your life, and you are brave and courageous, and you too are going through fire, and this fire is bringing out beauty in your life. And I just want people to be encouraged by that truth.
And the word that's just coming to my mind is repurposed.
Oh, yeah. It is, because this is like garbage in some ways.
Yeah, that we would see as garbage.
We would see as garbage.
We would see as garbage, but through this waiting period and our growth times, it does become repurposed.
Yeah.
And like, quite frankly, I don't know what the next 2 years, 5 years holds.
Yeah.
I just don't know that. And I'm expecting something beautiful from it. And I'm expecting something has come out of all the kind of pain and anguish of the last couple of years and the kind of lost opportunities. And what I think are lost dreams that may not be lost dreams, but just might be different.
And I think the idea that this is a kayak, because I know for you going on your kayak is part of your happy moments where you're enjoying the water. And so even in the midst of the brokenness and the pain of life, you can still find some measure of peace and beauty and joy, I hope. That's kind of the whole thing that this represents. And so this is meant to be a meditation tool so that for me, I sit and I think and process. As a person of faith, I pray as well. And I just kind of touch it and I feel the roughness of it with the smoothness of the glass. And it just kind of centers me as I think about what it represents in my life. So anyway, that's for you, Jillian.
I'm hugging you afterwards because...
Okay. I know. It will just cause too much disruption in our recordings and all. But thank you for hanging in through this. I hope, as I said, that it encourages you. The gallery, the artist, we can post all that in case you want to get one of these yourself. It was, I wanted to buy it to also honor the artist, just that she was able to create such beauty and such a representation of how life can be. Yeah. And how beautiful life can be even in the midst of our broken bits. So thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fully Lived Life podcast. We hope you found it encouraging and helpful. Be sure to follow or subscribe so that you never miss a new episode. And if you enjoyed our show, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family and posting on your social media. Thanks for listening and tune in to our next episode.